We are live. Sprint Right Option Podcast, part of the Blue Wire Hustle Network. I am Andrew Pasquini. That is Jason Aponte to my left. Actually, it's not. I just wanted to really run with Andrew's intro and everything because he does it so well and it's so professional. So unfortunately, Andrew's not here today. He's on the IR. It's not a high ankle sprain, guys, and he should be fine, honestly. But for today, I have a special guest with me, Mr. Brad Graham, Mr. The SF Niners on Instagram and on Twitter. Brad, what's up, bro?
Bro, I'm hyped. Obviously, we know what happened. We got all kinds of players signed, all kinds of movement. I'm working off of 2 hours sleep. So things can get a little crazy today. We'll see what happens. But, when you're only working off 2 hours of sleep, we'll see what happens.
So it's really funny, honestly, that you brought that up because, the first thing that we're just going to talk about free agency, right? We're not going to talk about, wheelings and dealings that they should do or anything like that. Let's just talk about the bare facts because 49ers fans are excited. I'm excited. Yeah. I had to break out the TO jersey. I'm excited. I wanted to,
fresh, by the way.
I appreciate that. When it hits different when you pop the tag on it, from the top, like it's just like, whoo, this is brand new. But there's a lot of good vibes going on. So it's funny that you're gonna start there because that's what happened, right? So last night we're on Clubhouse as we frequently are, much later into the night on my side, being on the East Coast and away from the West Coast. So I decide finally for one night, hey, I'm gonna try to get some sleep tonight. Why? Why?
You picked the wrong night.
Why, Brad?
You picked the wrong night. Oh my goodness. It was so lit last night. It was absolutely insane. When Trent dropped that Forever Faithful, like I'm talking about DEFCON 5, like immediately. Because, I've been covering social media for a while, covering these players, doing all that kind of stuff. So when players in the middle of a contract situation and they put something out like that, you know right away. So obviously he posted the picture of his back tat, Forever Faithful. And then right after that, he reposted one of his boys and his reaction to signing the deal. So right away, like we were like, oh, it's going on. It was like what, 12:30, Pacific Standard Time. It was crazy, man. It was crazy.
West Coast dads might have been asleep at that time too, as well. East Coast dads, I was out. So it was crazy, honestly. So I got a chance to hop on an IG live with you, and that was a thrill because I remember watching all of your IG lives. Like, man, I would love for this guy to notice me. Remember, I had to beg for a follow back at
you did. You did, and you did a great job. And I followed you immediately right after that. I was like, this guy deserves it. He earns it. He's earned it.
That's when I felt like I made it.
When you came on, that was fun. We had a lot of fun. Yeah. That was before everything popped too.
That was, but honestly, you've been putting in a lot of work. You had Daniel Brunskill today on your IG. Talk a little bit about that.
That was a lot of fun because, Daniel Brunskill is a little bit of a page legend over here. Being an offensive lineman myself, I just love what he does against Aaron Donald. So that's where he made his name for me. But it was really great being able to talk to him. He actually gave some pretty good insight into, Trent Williams, Alex Mack, and even Samson Ebukam. So 3 guys that we just recently signed. He was able to give some perspective on those signings, and it was just a really good conversation. He's a great guy, super chill.
That's chill. Awesome. That's an amazing get, man. And I was able to hop in for a little bit until, dad duties came over me again and I had to do something else. And if you hear some screaming in the background, you already know what that is. I tried to get her down early enough in time, but it's there. So let's get to it. You guys see it on the bottom. Trent Williams is back, gave him the bag, but he didn't come alone. He's with somebody else. And we've all speculated about Alex Mack, fit, Shanahan guy, center. Center's a vital piece to this offense and how it operates. Absolutely. And a lot of the early on offensive line struggles I would attribute to missing calls. Guys not communicating correctly, not so much technique all the time. Sometimes you can nitpick here and there when guys are not doing things correctly. But I would say for the large part, a lot of the issues that the offensive line was having was due to miscommunications, not understanding where the blitz were coming from. Now, Alex Mack is literally, you can say what you want about his age, but Alex Mack is plug and play. And you have
absolutely.
It's an absolute upgrade. Talk to me, Brad.
So what was really cool about talking to Daniel, he was actually on Atlanta's team for 2 seasons on the practice squad. So he was in the same room with Alex Mack for 2 years. So he talked about him just being the literal pros pro, the dude on the practice field working his tail off every day, brought his lunch pail. He's a total leader of the room. He said one of the biggest, upsides to Alex is just how smart he is, man. He's just like, and you alluded to it already, a lot of the issues that we saw with the 49ers just was being able to identify pressure, being able to identify blitzes and act accordingly. And so we got put out of place a lot of times just because we had inexperienced centers, the majority of the year. So what was really cool about what Brunskill said is like we're getting a guy who's going to come in right away and be able to key on everything that's happening and get everyone in the right spot. So 49er fans should be pretty darn excited about this signing because, like you said, it's plug and play. It's right away. We're going.
And then I think the thing is as well too, and I think this is a little bit of something that I took issue with Daniel Brunskill. Just because a guy can play a bunch of spots doesn't mean that you should just be bouncing him around. And I love the idea of Daniel Brunskill being able to take constant reps at right guard. You will see improvement. You will see a man who gets to key in on everything. You're an offensive lineman. How hard is it to go from guard to center to guard to center, back and forth? Like it's literally like it's a position right next to the guard, but it is two different positions completely. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so obviously playing guard, you're not having to snap or anything, but when you go down to kick down to center, you're already focused. You're more focused on the defense, the alignments they're trying to give you to get your rest of your guys, getting into protection. But let's say you have to reach block Aaron Donald as a center, you still have to snap the ball. Like you have to snap and work your technique. So when you're inexperienced and you're learning on the fly, basically for the first time in the NFL, it's a little bit difficult. But what Brunskill was talking about is this was literally been his path almost his entire career. He was a college tight end. As a senior, he was switched to tackle because they had some injuries. And then from there, he's just switched all over the offensive line. So with him being able to focus on right guard only, it should really bring some continuity and some consistency across the line that we really need.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Trent's back, best left tackle in the game. You now upgrade at center. This offensive line is going to improve vastly, I believe.
Yes.
Say what you want about age. Again, experience, reputation, the way the guy plays. You saw how effective this offense was when Weston Richburg was upright and competent. Now, that's what you might be looking at right now. So 49ers fans have every right to be excited. And the thing that I was most afraid of with Trent leaving is, again, and I'll reiterate it because I've spoken about it on plenty of, the shows and things, is that when you send a third for him, then you take out the language with the franchise tag in his contract, and then he leaves and you get nothing because you don't get a compensatory pick because he has 10 accrued seasons in the league. That's where I was nervous. That's why I was like, first day of free agency and he's still not signed. It's like, come on, like, what are we doing? But you know what? Apparently John Lynch and Jed York were not hacked. They were not hacked. That was a wild night as well, too. Like, we didn't get a chance to really talk about that because we held off on Monday to do this on Wednesday, thinking that the first day of free agency would have a bunch of stuff going on. And I'm kind of glad we did. But that night, like, really, the last 3 days on 49ers Twitter has been unifying somehow. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find people right now that are upset with anything that's going on with this team as far as there's plenty of people that said, you can't sign Juice, you can't sign Verrett, you can't sign Trent. They're all here.
They're all here. And they all got contracts that they deserved. Obviously Trent being the leader of the pack, being paid as the highest offensive tackle in NFL history. The 49ers really showed him the respect he deserved. What did they give him? $55.1 million guaranteed over 6 years. Absolute great. I applaud John Lynch, Parag Marathe, ownership for understanding how important Trent Williams was to this team, to the roster construction moving forward in the future, and giving him what he deserved. Because you and I talked about it. We were nervous when Papa came out and dropped that 4 for 80. We were like, oh, let's brace. I told my followers at the SF Niners, I was like, all right, guys, start mentally preparing. Don't get blindsided, because when they dropped those details, we knew that wouldn't get it done. And the deal that got it done was exactly what needed to happen. And I'm just hyped that ownership went to bat and they got it done. And Trent Williams is back.
Absolutely. Hashtag paid Trent Williams. And now we don't have to pester them anymore for that.
Nope.
Let's move on. So Juice, there's a lot of discussion about, positional value. How much money do you allocate to the position and things like that? The thing that makes Juice vital to this offense is the way that he creates angles in the run game, the way that Kyle Shanahan can use him. The issue that I kind of have, and you can talk me through this real quick, Brad, the snap percentages, and here's the thing. When games get, let's just say there's a game where the 49ers have to throw themselves back into a game.
Yeah.
Kyle Juszczyk's usually not going to be on the field for those things, right? So it's almost, it's look, I'm not trying to downplay it. I'm happy he's back. I'm happy that, fullbacks are getting paid. And again, you have to go to a place where they're actually going to utilize you. You can make money and go somewhere where they'll never use you the way that they're using you over here. So I've always thought that they kind of had an upper leg on the competition. But talk to me about the Juice deal and talk to me about your feelings around it.
So with the Juice deal, I can definitely understand, the positional value and the price tag that he received. But I think with how the 49ers view this move is they're also looking past what he does between the white lines. I think a perfect example is what happened on Twitter that night when our ownership group and GM got drunk and FaceTimed him because they were so hyped to sign him. We've never seen anything like that across the sports landscape ever.
Wait, fun? Are you allowed to have fun while you're an owner and a GM? Is fun allowed?
Apparently, and I'm glad to see it, because honestly, I think that speaks to a lot of what Juice is, to this locker room, to this franchise. I think they really view him as an ambassador of the team. And they really value what he brings to the locker room. I know Kittle loves him to death. So I think he's a glue guy. I think that's part of it. I think when you're looking at value, you're looking at roster construction. Yeah, we look at what happens between the white lines, but I think you have to take into account what these players do off the field as well. Now, looking at it from on the field standpoint, Kyle and the fullback are synonymous with one another. So I understand the move. You're getting Kyle, the best fullback in the league. Obviously, it comes at a price. The whole reservation I had about it was, how do you pay Trent Williams, Juice, and Verrett? And to me, it felt like Juice was the one who you could, make the argument. We saw how Dwelley played when Juice was out and fit that role, played really well. So why not do something similar? But I think at the end of the day, they just truly value what he brings. He brings a lot. So I think with how we're watching everything come out, it comes out to a good situation, because they were able to keep all their guys, and they got a guy that the locker room truly loves. So
yeah, and culture is a big thing, and the way that people view, who they should bring in, who they should let go, and who should be drafted. Culture, your integrity. The thing that I learned the most from you in Mobile, and I think it has to do a lot with the way that you're putting your teams together. Scout integrity. And how do you do that? How do you scout integrity? And that's the part that I found myself trying to figure out. It's like, people can say whatever they. Yeah, exactly. People can say all the right things in an interview. In an interview, right, for a job that I'm trying to get from you, right. I'm not going to tell you, hey, I'm going to work hard for 3 months. After that, I'm going to start slacking off because
I'm skating.
Right, or I'm just going to slack off because, you can't fire me after the 3 months period, so it's really an intangible that is not tangible so many times, but you do have to scout it. And I think that's a really good point about culture and everything as well. Just purely football fit. I just kind of wish that they would move Juice around and split him out wide. Former tight end, use him a little bit more like that. Like I love the way that they use him on the leaks. They use him to get easy throws for whoever the quarterback is. I love all those things. I just feel like if we're going to be paying you, let's use you a little bit more creatively at this point. You know, I don't know the personnel groupings. Again, we don't have a final roster set, so I won't speculate before we get those sort of things. But yeah, you know, if you're going to pay a guy premium money at a, you know, not so premium position, I'd like to just see you use them a little bit more. That's it. Like, I want to see you in that 50-60 snap percentage.
That makes perfect sense. And so I think with how this team continues to build, it's going to be really interesting to see how they handle the quarterback position, because depending on who is playing under center, that could either, you know, keep the scheme kind of where it is, or it could open up and evolve. So I think that's something to take into account as well. If we look back at 2019, we look at 2020, you know, those years you can put some context around it and potentially around his usage. So the hope is, you know, if Kyle's gets the ability to open up his offense more, the hope is he can be more creative with Juice as well. Because if you can use Juice as that matchup nightmare, do it. You paid him. Let's get it done.
Yeah. I agree 100%, Brad. All right, let's move on real quick. So, Jason Verrett. I mean, when you hear Jason Verrett at the end of his time with the team say, I owe them a lot. I love their training facilities for whatever that's worth, you know, things like that, right? And I think that he really showed loyalty to the 49ers for sticking with him when nobody else probably would have taken those chances. No. So here's the one thing I'll say. In the beginning, it looks bad with Verrett. You're just like, what are you doing here? Remember, they didn't give him much money. It's like, why are you here? You're not really doing anything. And then week 2, he's pressed into duty immediately because of all the injuries. And then he starts to show that all-pro form that he had over there with the Chargers. Now, concerns with a long-term contract with Verrett came into whether last year's health was the exception or the rule. And that's a fair argument. It is.
Right.
But what Jason Verrett got a bunch of multi-year offers. He took a 1-year deal to stay with the 49ers and bet on himself. If he shows anything that like he did last year, he's going to get the bag.
Yes.
Talk to me, Brad.
I mean, we know Jason Verrett is a Pro Bowl, all-pro player prior to injury. And obviously, it's been quite a journey to come back. But I think it speaks volumes to his character and his ability to push through adversity. To be able to come back and play at the high level he did. And the fact that he came back to the Niners when he had other deals on the table, I think that's pretty cool. I love when players do that. Similar to what happened last year, Jimmy Ward could have signed with the Raiders for a lot more money. He chose to come back to the Niners on a, you know, relatively speaking, cost-effective contract compared to other top safeties. So, you know, if that mentality exists within the building, that's, again, speaking to culture, speaking to the locker room, speaking to what these guys are building. Obviously, last year was just a disaster in regards to injuries, and, you know, that affected everyone across the board. So if this team can restack and reload and get healthy, I think we're in for a pretty solid outing from this defense, and including Jason Verrett. It's just, again, the only caveat with him is can he stay healthy? But for the 49ers, with 1 year, was a $5.5 million contract. I mean, that to me is a steal. That to me is like stealing. So I'm really excited about that.
And when you break down the base salary and everything as well, it's loaded with. So, you know, I don't want to throw this out there because I'm not trying to speak this into existence, but God forbid there is something that happens to Jason Verrett. There's so many in-game bonuses for being active and things like that are in there. Again, Jason Verrett's betting on himself, and he's betting on the cap exploding again, and then, you know, having his services, you know, wanted by so many other players. You know, the fact that he's willing to bet on himself when there were multi-year deals on the table shows me, one, that he loves the culture here and he loves being here. But two, I'm much more confident now. He has no concerns. He turned down more money. He turned down more security because he's betting on himself. If you're going to bet on yourself, dude, I'm with you, man. And Richard Sherman did it first, and everyone killed him for it. And he was absolutely right. He bettered himself, and
Right.
he did it by himself with no agent, and everybody, went crazy on him. And look what happened. It was the right move. So I'm stoked, man. I had Jason Verrett as the number 2 free agent that needed to be signed. It was Trent, and then it was Verrett, and I got pushed back, after I wrote my article for 49ers Gold Mine about, hey, is this the exception? Is the rule? Look, the difference is this, and we can move on right after this. Week 1, DeAndre Hopkins, 14 catches, 100-something yards, 145 yards. Week 16, whenever they played again, week 15, 7 catches, 49 yards. Difference.
He clamped them.
Big difference. Big difference. Big difference. Yeah. All right, let's move on. You know what? Should we talk about Emmanuel Moseley too? Let's just stay on this because we're on corners. So yeah, so Emmanuel Moseley was somebody that I said, based on thoughts about how's this team gonna fill the cornerback role? I'm a big AJ Boye guy. I think that there's plenty of guys that you can get out there, but I want AJ Boye with Jason Verrett. So my thing with Emmanuel Moseley was, you have to bring him back because you don't know who from last year's team you can absolutely rely on. And you might be looking at a completely different cornerback room with just Tim Harris and Webster on the roster. Talk to me about Moseley.
Yeah, so my understanding was he was going into this free agency period as a restricted free agent. So he was under team control for the most part. So I think the extension that they gave him was actually to be able to spread out the cap hit and keep him here on a relatively cheap deal, because honestly, I don't know if they knew if Verrett was coming back. So they needed someone. They just needed a body, honestly. I think Moseley is capable to be a starter in this league. I don't necessarily want him to be my cornerback 1, but I'm fine with him. I'm fine with him locking down one side if that's what it comes down to. But him, Verrett together, I'm okay with. And I think at the very least, it gives us 2 options to be confident in going into this season. Obviously, there needs to be more depth, at least in my opinion, at the position. And nickel needs to be figured out. But right now, with Jason Verrett and Emmanuel Moseley coming back, it makes me sleep a little bit better at night.
For sure. And that's it. I've talked on this show and many other shows about the unknown. And what do I know? What do I know? He's been solid for the team. The team seems to trust him because anytime that they had him to put him in a pinch, they threw him in there and he did fine.
Right.
Betting on other guys coming back, we'll talk about who departed, that's at the end of the show. But again, what do I know? I know that Moseley's solid. I know that he's restricted. So you have to make an offer for him and it won't be too much, depending on the tender that they wanted to put on him. I didn't think that it was going to cost him too much to come back to. And again, you need a fail safe. If Emmanuel Moseley and let's say the 49ers by the end of this week, they bring in somebody else at cornerback who can be cornerback 2. Maybe you kick Moseley into the slot. Maybe that changes how you look about K1, who's still out there as well too. Like, I'm not advocating for him over K1. I understand the importance of K1. Trust me, I know exactly what he does. It's just, unfortunately, it's a business sometimes. And if K1 Williams wants to go get paid, I'm never going to be mad at any player who decides to provide for their family, even if it's not for the team that I root for.
Right. So
go ahead.
I was just going to say, with both of them coming back, I think that helps leave the door open for them to still add some pieces, add another piece because what we were just talking about with Verrett is he going to stay healthy all 16 games? Mm-hmm. So at the very least, we need that depth. We need these bodies here that we can rely on and count on, at least in situational spots or what have you, or all 16 games. But this still gives them the flexibility to go out and kick the tires on other cornerbacks and even look at the draft, see what they want to do. This now doesn't pigeonhole them into a situation where they have to draft a cornerback at 12. They have to go out and sign another guy. It gives them the flexibility now to be a little bit more liquid or fluid in this situation.
And I think that's a great point because bringing back Trent, bringing back all of these guys, basically the 49ers don't have to tip their hand on what they want to do at 12. And that's important. If Trent walks, you can kind of pencil in offensive tackle immediately at 12. Right
away. Right. Yeah. I already had my guys ready of who was going to slot in there because I was already preparing. So I wanted to be ready with who was going to come in, who we were going to draft. But I'm glad we don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah, and that's honestly what I think that's really what everybody's excited about. Look, even the most optimistic 49ers fan couldn't have foreseen a scenario where Juice, Verrett, Trent, all these guys are back. And, even DJ Jones, and
Even
we
DJ
could,
Jones. I thought
even
DJ Jones was gone.
Right, exactly. So it's like, is a salary cap a myth? And we'll move on to DJ right now. But is a salary cap a myth? I don't know. But Parag right now is working in a way it's just, man, the numbers and the way that he puts it together, there's accountants that don't understand accounting. Like they go to school for that and they still don't understand how to do this. We were just talking before the show. I added something up and it was probably wrong. Math is hard. Math is very hard, Brad. Talk to me about DJ Jones coming back, because I kind of had it penciled in as a departure.
I totally thought DJ Jones was out the door because I felt like he could have commanded some value on the open market. He is a quick twitched, bigger nose not bigger, but he's a quick twitched nose tackle who can create interior pressure. He comes off the line very quick. His first step quickness and burst is legit. And it's one of my favorite attributes about him. So I honestly thought he would actually get some more interest, but he comes back to the 49ers and we needed a piece to fill that nose tackle role next to Kinlaw. So with DJ Jones coming back, again, that just feels like house money. Feels like something that wasn't going to happen and we would have to address in free agency or in the draft with depth. But right now he comes back and he fills a big role, at least in regards to depth, and could definitely be a spot starter in my opinion.
Yeah, and rotational, that's the thing that people, people get wrapped up in, oh my God, is he going to impact? Well, he'll impact when, he's facing a lineman who's been going, all game and he's fresh, moving in and out, like that sort of, again, what do you know? DJ Jones is solid. DJ Jones is going to be an interior lineman for you so you can, kick people out, and get creative with the way that you bring your pressures and things like that. So I was shocked, honestly, to find out that he was coming back, man. I really, really was shocked, man. I really was.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't expecting it. I was like, oh, no way. We got DJ Jones back. All right, let's go. But it does, again, it's just one of those other pieces, kind of like we were talking about with Mosley. It just gives the 49ers plenty of flexibility. They're not pigeonholed into, focusing on a need. Mm-hmm. It gives them a lot of opportunity to do a lot of things, and he can still grow and develop. He's been in a rotation. He hasn't got, a ton of snap shares. So maybe he gets more and maybe he produces more. So it's going to be interesting to see. But at the very least, he could be a fantastic, nickel nose tackle coming in, rushing the passer, all that good stuff.
What's funny? That's the first thing that I thought of too, because Fox brings up a great point with anytime that I think of DJ Jones, I just remember him on the Monday Night Football game in 2019, obliterating that censor, and just Russell was like, I don't even know what to do. He just got that.
that highlight lives rent free in my head. That's why it was the first one I used when we signed him. I was like, Oh, I got the perfect one. Let's go.
For sure. So you say his name because you said it correctly, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna use how you pronounced it.
Samson Ebukam.
Perfect. So Ebukam gets signed, former Ram, and a lot of people kind of scratch their head about who is this? And you know what? I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell the truth. I had to go look it up too. I really did. I remember the Monday Night Football game that they had against the Chiefs, and he had the pick six in that game, or the fumble recovery or something like that he ran back for the touchdown. I remember that. But I don't really remember what his role is, what his skill set is. Guy's a freak. Guy is a freak. When I started to look up his snap percentages, and this is where people get a little bit hung up, 33% on defense, I think, this past year, and then the rest on special teams. So everybody's freaking out. Oh, my God, why did we just pick a guy who – It's need. It's, again, need, and with the Rams and the way the Rams use it. So, this is something that my guy Marco Martinez, pointed out on Twitter, right? And I'm not trying to say that he's this guy, but I'm trying to correlate how sometimes guys either get insane amounts of pressure on low snaps and then turn that into more when they get more. But Shaq Barrett kind of lines up with the way Ebukam, his numbers look, right? Shaq Barrett was creating a ton of pressure with limited snaps. Ebukam did the same thing, and he really, really sets into that D Ford role, who we really don't know what's going to happen with D Ford. But you understand that this team and the way that they've been roster constructing is consistent, because they still see the best fit as with that turbo package. You need Ebukam and you need Bosa on the other side, and you need things like that. You know, when you look at his pressure numbers in the limited amount of snaps, if you extrapolate that into a much larger snap share, he's going to have more pressures than a lot of people. So talk to me a little bit. I know you know more about him. Go for it.
So I agree. I saw a lot of people have a similar reaction as you, like, who? And when I saw it come across, I was like, what? I had no idea he was a free agent. Not a clue. And I was immediately excited when we got him, because anything I've ever heard about him, you know, in a Rams uniform has been positive. I think he's just a guy who suffered from being buried on the depth chart, you know, playing behind other guys. But he is a guy who can slot into that D Ford role, bring the speed off the edge. When I was talking to Brunskill today, I said, well, you know, your first start in the NFL was at right tackle against the Rams. So have you played against Ebukam? Like, what is your thoughts on him? And the first thing he said was motor. He said he has a relentless motor that does not quit. He just comes after you, and he's a great athlete, and he's got the speed, and he's got the strength, and he can do it all. And he said, but the most impressive thing about him is his motor does not stop. He just constantly going. And when you're looking, for me personally, I love that from my defensive ends, because you're not going to win on the first move all the time. Sometimes you have to counter, you have to redirect yourself, and that motor is the difference between a sack and a completion. So with Ebukam, I'm super excited to get him. And then speaking to Dan, he had nothing but glowing things to say about him. Obviously, it's his teammate, but we were speaking from like, what was it like playing against him? And he said, you know, he's a legit player, and so he's really excited to have him. And that's how I felt when it came across, because that's exactly like, you know, Jordan Splash Cousin put me on to Azeez Ojulari. The 49ers actually met with him today.
That's his brand right now. I mean,
it's his brand,
and everybody just tagged Jordan.
And rightfully so, because Jordan put me on. And when you watch his tape, there are a lot of similarities to D Ford. He's like a pure pass rusher. He's not necessarily going to be fantastic in base downs. You know, he can put some work into that. But when you're looking at how we already talked about defensive line rotation, all of those kinds of things, we just need guys to come off the edge with their hair on fire, because that's something that we missed last year with Bosa out, D Ford out. Hyder was a great big end for us, but big ends don't necessarily come with the speed. They're more base down guys. Obviously, they're going to get their opportunities, but that's why when we signed Ebukam, I was like, oh, yeah, I like Ebukam way better than Hyder, because I feel like he fits what we were missing the most last year, which was speed off the edge. So I'm really excited about that. I think, and he came in on a steal of a deal. So I think there's a real opportunity for him to put in a lot of work and show up and show out for this defense.
Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing is that he offers you something in coverage that D Ford never did. Like, do you remember D Ford's initial press conference? They said, well, what did they bring you here to do? Go that way. That's what he said. Go that way. Like, that's it, you know, right. And that's the thing. And those turbo packages were missing that, you know, look, for as much as D Ford is getting whatever, you know, negative press for whatever, for being injured, which I don't understand how you can do that. But when Ford and Bosa were on the field, I don't know how you stop them off the edge. I really don't. I have no idea, honestly. So now you're talking about having a guy who can do things similar to you know, to Ford. I'm not gonna automatically say that he's gonna be right. Ford off the rap, because that's not.
And I don't think he is Ford.
Right. So that's not the way to go about this. But if you bring him on the line, you can bring flexibility where you drop him in the coverage real quick and you have someone else coming. Like, going through his film, I could see some of those things on there. And sometimes when I watched the 49ers last year, they would be dropping like Eric Armstead into coverage. That's not fooling anybody. I don't understand. I don't understand that thought process. I know you want to kind of change it up. If Eric Armstead's on the line, then yeah, he's going for the quarterback. No, we're going to drop him back. No, that's not it. But in this case, if you want to use him in a way where you have him on the line, he's showing blitz, but he can get back to his cover and have someone else blitz in his stead where you don't see it coming, I think that becomes invaluable because when Dee Ford's on the field on third downs, he's not on first and second. When he's on third down, you already know what he's there to do. He's just there to rush the passer. So I'm not trying to tell you he's Dee Ford. I am trying to tell you why you should be excited about such a move because the kid, his athletic numbers, combine numbers are through the roof. And when you're going to take a chance on a guy, you always want to take a chance on a guy who has those measurables because then you can tap into that. Same reason they went to get Jordan Willis, same reason that they go to kick the tires on any of those guys is because they measure well and you're trying to tap into that potential. I, at first, was lukewarm on the deal. After you get a chance to review the tape, look at everything that he does, look at what he offers his defense, you should be a little bit more excited about Ebukam.
Exactly. And basically what you're speaking to is you're not necessarily comparing Dee Ford to Ebukam. You're looking at the role that they both fulfill.
Bingo.
And how they slot into doing similar things. I still think Sampson isn't going to be our starting 3-down defensive end. No. I still think we need to go out and get a couple more edge defenders, maybe even another pass rush guy. Blair's not here anymore. He was just released. Who knows if Hyder's coming back? That would be a good get if we can somehow flip him back and he can be our base down edge. And then you have Ebukam come in and on, nickel downs and pass rushing downs. Then we're talking, then we're cooking. Then there's a lot more diversity that can come from that scheme, what we're trying to accomplish, how we throw different looks at you, and just really get back to dominating offensive lines. Because as we saw in 2019, when we had a healthy Bosa, Defoe, Eric Armstead, Dee Ford, and all the guys coming in behind them, it just helped everything. So I really think the 49ers understand that they need to get back to that and rebuild that, which is why they drafted Kinlaw last year to replace Defoe. They want that formidable defensive line again. So obviously Dee Ford, we don't know what's happened. I mean, honestly, his restructure from everything that we're seeing just looks like a way to spread out the cap because it was going to be there regardless.
And I think it was to take away that injury guarantee, right, for April 1st, because that was I don't think he's going to pass a physical.
No. So now it almost turns into a situation where we're just waiting for the post June 1st cut. I think that's coming for both Richburg and Dee Ford. So again, it was just a move to spread out the cap. And then eventually their time comes June 1st where unfortunately, they'll likely no longer be a part of this team. But that at least gives the 49ers the ability and flexibility to go out and keep adding pieces to that defensive line.
I love the re-sign Tart thing. You.
Oh yeah, I know.
Don't say stuff like that in the comments to get me excited, man. Do not do that, man. I've been trying. Trust me, I'm trying right now. All right. I don't want to end on a sad note, but I do want to talk about some departures from the team. I'm going to start with Solomon Thomas because I think I want to get something off my chest real quick, that I kind of got off on Twitter, but I want to elaborate on a little bit more on here. You may not like where Solomon Thomas was drafted, okay? Solomon Thomas did not draft himself, guys, okay? So you're more mad at Solomon Thomas than you are the people who make the decisions. That's wrong. And I feel awful that when you see Solomon Thomas leaving for Los Angeles or Las Vegas, wherever the Raiders play, that people take their chance right now to throw dirt on the man and say all these awful things. Listen, was he worthy of a number 3 pick? I'm not here to debate that. What I'm here to tell you is that he didn't draft himself there. Do you think that he was like, Take me instead of Watson and Mahomes and Derwin James.
This is the best idea you could ever make.
I'm baffled at this fan base sometimes. And this is the only negative thing that I have to say about this entire week, because everything's been great this week. It's been, flowers and sunshine and everything.
Right.
I dislike the way certain people talk about Solomon Thomas. He never did anything wrong. If I was somebody that was supposed to be in the third round and I get my name called at number 3, you don't say, I'm not going up there to get my jersey, or I'm not, like, that's not how it works. The guy was played out of position the entire time that he was here as well. Because when you take a guy with a number 3 pick, you have these expectations that he can just do it all. And that's not true. Some guys just need to be put in the right position. What I want to say is, say what what you want about his time here. Please stop killing this man because he was drafted and this team didn't draft Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. How on earth is that Solomon Thomas's fault? And shame on any of you that have been saying some awful things about him, because I'm not going to stand for that. Football players are football players. He's a great human being. He's a solid player, but he didn't draft himself in a spot where look, be mad at the people who didn't draft the guy that you wanted, not the guy who got drafted in the spot. Go ahead, Brad.
Bro, preach. Like, you're preaching right now. So, me, I got these players' backs. I have relationships with these guys. So when a guy like Solomon Thomas, who, again, you make a perfect point, he didn't draft himself. He didn't play himself on the edge. That's the position he was put in. He was, when you make your money in college playing 90% of your snaps from the interior, and then they throw you out on the edge almost primarily as a rookie, when his traits and his build and everything you look at doesn't translate to success like you would want out of a wide 9 defensive end, because he's not that guy. He never was that guy. They just didn't have the right spot for him. They played him out of position for the pretty much majority of his career. And I think the other thing where I don't take Solly slander is because of what he dealt with off the field.
Talk about it.
So honestly, when he comes in and he's being played out of position, he's not getting, the production that he wants. Not shortly after that, unfortunately, it's a really sad story.
But you need to talk about it because
it's context.
It's his story.
It's context. Mm-hmm. Because after, a rough first season, his sister took her own life. And when you look at the relationship between Solly and his sister, I'm talking about best friends, like best friends. Like you look through their social media, how they interact with each other from kids to now, they were best friends. And when you lose someone like that, that demolished Solly. Absolutely demolished Solly to a point where he was talking about it. He said there was one day he was in the cafeteria contemplating taking his life. And John Lynch pulled him to the side, had a conversation with him, and he credited John Lynch for really turning around his mentality of, wanting to just, end his suffering to, I'm going to make a change and, be a change in other people's lives who've had to deal with this. So when we talked about it earlier, scouting integrity, that's also just scouting psychology, right? Understanding how things affect performance. Can you imagine? Can you imagine having to go out and do your job in that high profile of a situation where fans are already, I don't know if I can swear on, are already crapping on you, and now you're dealing with that, and every day they're in your DMs, every day they're in your comments telling you you're trash, you need to get off this team. It was just a really unfortunate situation. So when it comes to Solly, man, I have his back till the end. I understand the context to why he wasn't successful, and I get it. And I also believe that he needed a fresh start. He just needed to, get out of here, spread his wings a little bit, and hopefully find a spot that fits him really well. I wish nothing but the best for Solly. Obviously, hindsight being what it is, would we pick other guys? Of course. But when it comes to Solly, nothing but respect, because I understand his context.
That's it. I can't imagine that. And this is a good segue into somebody else who, 49er fans really felt for during the time where, where he was on the team, So something comes across Twitter, right? And at this point, everybody is nervous about getting got by, false reports and things like that, right?
I got.
Yeah, I got like not that long ago. It was actually really good, actually. I had to like say respect. But you see something that says Marquise Goodwin is reverted back to the 49ers. And I'm like, reverted? I've been watching this game for a long time. I don't need to tell you my age because I don't want to date myself. But I've never heard of anything like that. But the point that I'm trying to correlate to is Marquise Goodwin has dealt with several tragedies as a 49er fan, as a 49er. Everybody knows the touchdown against the Giants where he dropped to his knees. We had no idea at that point. He had lost his son hours before that game, and he went out there and played. I was
in the end zone. I was in the end zone of that game. Wow. It was wild. It was wild seeing it live, man.
Wow. And you're a dad. I'm a dad.
Yeah.
I can't imagine. I would not want to play football that day. I'm not playing football that day. But he did. And he's dealt with it multiple times where, unfortunately it's a miscarriage. 49er fans showed a lot of sympathy, empathy towards him. But I feel like that wasn't given to Saleh in the same way. Just because, look, a lot of 49er fans have kids. No one could understand that sort of tragedy. That's why I always say I can't imagine, because I can't imagine. I can't imagine what my mind would be doing at that point. But for Saleh, he never got those same sort of thoughts, I feel like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, as Marquise Goodwin, who was also cut today. I just wanted to correlate the two because they have had tragedies while they were in 49ers uniforms, and I think the response was just a little bit different. Talk to me, Brad.
It was a lot different. And it was interesting to see because obviously Marquise Goodwin became a polarizing player for us for some of the tragedies that he fought through. Like I said, I was in the end zone when he scored that touchdown. I remember it like it was yesterday, him dropping to his knees, and I thought he was injured. But then the way all his teammates met him at the ground, I looked at my buddy. I said, "Oh, something happened.
Something happened.
Someone passed. Like something happened. Like something happened with him." Off the field. And sure enough, we found out that he had just lost his son and he came out and played. And of course, that's really tough. That becomes a really polarizing story. It gets a ton of media and a ton of press. So a lot of people gain a different type of perception of that situation, where I think with Saleh, it wasn't a super publicized situation because honestly, how tough is it to talk about suicide and things like that. It's really hard. So I think, and it took him a while to be very vocal and upfront with all of that kind of situation. I even look at Hayden Hurst and him winning, I believe some kind of award for his work in suicide prevention because he almost took his life.
That video, I implore anybody who's ever watched this show or listened, I implore you to look up the Hayden Hurst story and why he ran up to Dak Prescott, after their game, and he said, "Thank you for talking about your brother's suicide," because nobody would ever talk about that. But I didn't mean to cut you off. Keep going.
But you just said it right there. I think there's a stigma surrounding, which these guys are trying to break, right? They're trying to break through because I think when something like that happens, it's really hard to talk about. Yes. But when, someone loses someone to a miscarriage, a lot of people can relate to that, maybe a little bit more. So it's talked about differently. And so I think just with Saleh, it just kind of flew under the radar, and fans just kept pressing him about how he was being played. And so it was just an unfortunate situation.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't trying to, make light of the situation or anything like that. I just found it weird how different situations, and Marquise Goodwin was on the 49ers for a few hours before he was actually cut again, which and it's so weird. They had to send a 7th round pick to Philly. What are we doing here?
Dude, absolutely crazy. Like when I saw he got reverted, again, same reaction to you. I was like, I've never seen this before. What does this even mean? It means he's back on our roster. And they're like, well, the dead money's already been paid. The salary's taken care of. So he's basically rent free or whatever. And then it comes out, well, because of the situation, we have to give up a 7th round pick this year, our original 7th round pick.
Mhm.
And that was just like, oh, that just sucks. Because we go from 10 picks down to 9. And, we just released him today. It was just this is a weird situation, something I'd never really seen before.
Right, and that 7th round pick, there goes our backup punter, because your punter is only as good as the backup. All right, look, what? All right, so let's talk about a serious thing. Ahkello Witherspoon, who I have caped to come back, but I just wondered whether he would come back because of the other circumstances. Shanahan's doghouse.
A real thing?
Yes, it is a real thing. Here's the thing. Name me a better duo than Seattle Seahawks and former 49ers players.
I don't think I can, honestly. I really don't think I can. It's like clockwork. I thought DJ was going there. I thought damn near half the free agents on the 49ers are heading up north to go play for Seattle and Pete Carroll. But honestly, it makes sense with Ahkello. He's a natural scheme fit for what they do, playing those cover 2, cover 3 concepts. He fits what they want to do. So I think that is him moving on is just a product of us re-signing Verrett. I think if Verrett, goes away, then there's an opportunity, I think, for Ahkello to come back on a prove-it deal. But I think, with the opportunity gone, it just made the door open up for him to go up north. And I guarantee you he's up there with DJ Reed. 49ers cut DJ Reed this offseason. They thought he was going to somehow swing back around onto IR. And of course, Seattle swooped him. They reunite. And they're going to want to give the 49ers fits. They're going to be motivated to play against us. So
I mean, the thing with Spoon, I've been really vocal about Spoon. It's the thing that I feel like he broke through the mental hurdle is Shanahan's doghouse. Yeah. There's people that make it out of the doghouse and find their way back onto the field, and they don't do anything. Like I said, I forget what show I said it. Dante Pettis finally got back on the field, and he went out on his shield in Seattle. He was just like, "That's the day." Like, I regret nothing. And he just jumped in the air, and he was just like, "I'm done." Spoon actually, Spoon had to lock up in Arizona. DK Metcalf, he looked like he was playing with a confidence that he had shown in 2019 the first 4 games, right? And then injuries derail him, and then it always seemed like after one play he kind of just his confidence fell, and it always seemed mental. For me, now it's him getting on the other side of that, and I would not be surprised if all of a sudden next year. Everybody's making jokes on Twitter. Oh, we're going to pick on Spoon. Are you? Because I've spoken to people on this team that'll tell you that he was the best cornerback on this team even when Richard Sherman was there. And they believe that wholeheartedly.
Yep. And I'm one of those people. Because back when I was with 4th and 9, working with Croc is the cornerback god, right?
Guru. Anytime I have a question, I ask him.
Exactly. So when I was working with Croc, I was doing cut-ups, and the player that we were focusing on the first 4 weeks was Ahkello. So I watched every snap of Ahkello multiple times for the first 4 weeks. And I'm, like you said, one of those people who will bang the table and say Ahkello Witherspoon was the best cornerback on the 49ers, far and away over what Richard Sherman was producing at that time, far and away what K'Waun Williams was producing at that time. Ahkello was killing it. Started out with Mike Evans right at the beginning of the year, and then he just went on and on and on and just kept producing until, unfortunately,
pick 6 in that game too. That was sending him all the way up after that.
Yeah, and so I'm looking at Ahkello in 2019 like, this is the guy. This is the next guy. And then, unfortunately, again, injury happens. Injuries affect more than just physical ability. To me, being a former player myself and having to deal with it, I can argue a certain injury affects the mental ability more than anything else, because it's in the back of your subconscious. You're thinking about, if I plant hard enough, am I going to re-injure? Or if I do this the wrong way, am I going to re-injure? But it's not like you're making yourself think about it. It's just how it happens. And then I think the biggest thing with Akelo was seeing Mosley come in and watching Mosley thrive, because remember, Mosley came in, he balled out against the Browns
and DK Metcalf too. That's the
and
one that
DK
start week
Metcalf.
17. Week 17 is the one, and that's the thing, right? Week 17, Spoon gives up a touchdown. Spoon gives up his second touchdown, and they pull him. And Mosley comes off the bench cold, and he makes one of the most underrated plays in that game. Because if he doesn't look, he gets beat off of the line. I could see it like right here in my mind. He gets beat off of the line by DK Metcalf, but he recovers in a way that he's able to knock the ball away. And that's what I always said about Mosley, is that he's solid. But imagine being a guy and just having, anytime that you do anything wrong, all right, we're benching you. Like, how's that in your head?
Exactly. And so again, I'm a big, integrity guy, which also translates into psychology and sports psychology and how your mind is really the key driver. Because when we're in the NFL, we're talking about NFL football players. We're talking about the most elite athletes across the board. Every single person on an NFL roster is an elite athlete. That's not the problem. Everyone has the traits. Everyone has the measurables. Everyone has
That's why they're there.
What separates everyone from the next guy is how hard they work, their effort, and their confidence and mentality, and being able to bounce back through adversity. Because football, at the end of the day, is an imperfect game. If anything, it comes down to who makes the least amount of mistakes, not who is the most perfect. So you have to be able, especially being a cornerback, you're going to get beat, you're going to get smoked. It's going to happen. So you have to have short-term memory. You live one play at a time and you just move on. But it's really easy to when you get beat, to get pressed, to be like, I don't want that to happen again. So how am I going to make sure that doesn't happen again? And then you're over processing, you're overthinking, you're trying too many things, and you're getting away from what makes you a good football player. So when you see a guy like Mosley come in, ball out, do really well, and then Akelo pops back in when he's healthy and struggles, and they yank him immediately, Mosley comes back in and balls again, I feel like at that moment, confidence is shot, right? It's just how do you some players can't recover from that. I think we saw at the end of last year him finally rebound. Like, it took a while, but we saw some plays from Akelo where we're like, oh, there's the old Akelo. So yeah, I'm not gonna crap on him, because I know it's there. I know what he's capable of. I know the talent is there. It's just, if he can get his mental right and he can be focused and not worry about those types of things, he's gonna give us fits, man. He matches up well against our guys. He's gonna give us fits.
And he's played against them in practice. And that's the thing. When we talk to guys on this team, right? Because we do, and we talk to guys on the defense.
Right.
Nobody practices better. Nobody prepares better than him, and he's already seen. So this is the little stuff, the mind stuff, right? That I get worried about. Spoon knows what Brandon wants to do on every route. Spoon kind of knows what Debo wants to do on certain routes. That scares me. Like, he has
all the tendencies,
right? And he has all the intel of the offense, so he'll be able to look and say, okay, here's what we're looking at here. Like, don't discount them bringing Spoon over as one, a high upside cornerback pick, but also as intel. How do we stop this Shanahan offense? That's what I get nervous about.
Yes, and I think it's a great point, because these guys swap, all that kind of information when they go to their new team. Obviously, they just got discarded by that team, so they're like, whatever, I'm going to help my new team that believes in me be as successful as possible. So I think you make a great point. It's just going to be wild. It's going to be a great matchup. I'm excited to see it, though. I think he'll be a starter for them. Obviously, was a Shaquille Griffin
left. He's on the Jags.
Insane money for the Jags. Akelo's got a spot. They got DJ Reed in the slot. They're 49ers North. It is what it is.
It always, and it seems to be like that no matter the year, no matter who is, who's in the, well, it's the same people in the front office, but it's always like, man, they're always looking for the people that slide off of this roster. So let's bring it home. That's too big. Let's bring it home and it's not a ticker. Well, we're going to keep it like that. Give me your grade on this year, on what's going on right now with this team so far. Is it a slam dunk? Is it, straight up like, like B, something like that?
Yeah. I'll give you my answer.
Go
So
for it.
before we signed Trent Williams, I gave us a B plus.
Mhm.
How we were able to get Brunskill back on the tender. We got a starting right guard for 800,000. That's a win. You get Mosley back on that deal that he signed, lower the cap. That's a win. We needed that depth. Then you get Juice. Then you get Verrett. I was like, okay. And, obviously we talked about Juice's deal and we might not like the numbers, but I think we understand the fit and why he's here. But we're looking around, we see Ibu come through. We're like, okay, I like that too. So that pushed me up all the way to a B plus. And it was just until last night, just waiting. Honestly, we thought he was going away. We thought he was going bye-bye. But when that hit and then Alex Mack hit, and grades can get really homery, right? Like it's really easy just to be like, oh, we're talking about the 49ers A plus. That's super easy. But honestly, you take a step back, you look at how all these other teams have built throughout free agency, you look at who we've brought back, who we're able to sign or re-sign. I don't know how you don't give it an A plus. I mean, honestly, because now we have so much flexibility when it comes to making additional moves, potential trades at other positions, and being flexible in the draft. So that's all you can ask for going into the situation. It sounds like we're still floating really nice above the cap. I think around 14 million is what I read.
Mhm.
So you bring back all these guys, you still have space. You bring back DJ Jones, like someone you thought you were going to lose. You have I can make the argument right now that we have the best run blocking offensive line in football, and they haven't taken a snap yet. I won't talk about pass blocking quite yet because I still think there's work to be done in that regard. But when you look at these guys from a run blocking perspective in an outside zone scheme, and you plug Alex Mack in the center, you get Brunskill back to right guard, who is he's a zone guy. He's not going to power you off the line. He's going to work his technique and work his speed. And then we know McGlinchey, he's good in the run game. Needs work in the pass game, but that's why
But that's what he was brought here for.
That's why I preface it as, the best run blocking offensive line in football, because now they can start getting back to predicating their pass game off play action, which helps the offensive line. I think people don't understand how helpful it is to offensive linemen when they're running run action passes, because the offensive linemen still work their run blocking technique. They just don't get past 1 yard. They don't, or couple yards down the line of scrimmage. They just stay right there on the line of scrimmage, but they're still executing their run actions. Whereas last year we saw pure drop back and it turned into a disaster. So I'm really excited with what this offensive line looks like. I'm really excited that we got, we haven't even talked about Ross Dwelly, from a couple weeks ago. Marcel Harris is back. So we got some depth pieces. I feel like we're primed to make some additional moves to really bolster this offense. So that's why I'm like A plus. I think they killed it. They did everything that I wanted them to do plus more. So I don't know how I don't give them an A plus.
I've got him at an A just because I think that there's still room to grow to an A plus, because again, like you said, you can fill that cornerback 2 spot. You can do anything. Curtis Samuel and Smokey Brown have left the market, and yes, I am in shambles. Once I get off of this show, I will be
happened too.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, it happened right before we got on. I will be enjoying my St. Patrick's Day tonight, and I may not remember most of it from after this point. But one more person that I wanted to bring up, because we missed it when we were talking about farewells. Kendrick Bourne.
Oh, good one.
Yes. So,
go ahead.
Here's what I want to say, and I said it on your show yesterday on the IG Live. I am happy for Kendrick Bourne. Undrafted free agents don't get second contracts. They don't. Let alone the contract that he got from the Patriots. Again, 49er fan, yes. Pro player, much more so. He has turned his undrafted status into a second contract where he is going to go to a place where the Patriots are going to run a lot of the routes that he likes to run with Cam. You know, they've loaded up with Jonnu, with Hunter Henry. They're going to be running those short comebacks in the middle of the field. Kendrick Bourne is about to eat right now in this offense, and I couldn't be more happy for him. As much as I would like to see him get back to wide receiver 3 status, and I've made it no secret, I thought that the team could upgrade from him. As solid as he is, there was players out there, John Brown, Curtis Samuel, that I would have loved to have seen, you know, but you still cannot deny what he was able to do with his circumstances. And I couldn't be happier for the guy right now that he got his bag. And I couldn't be happy that he's going to a place where if there's a place that is, you know, culturally as good, Niners, Patriots, they kind of line up the same way. And he's going to be in a great spot. And, you know, and whether Cam's the quarterback or someone else is, I don't know. But I know that right now, Bill is in his bag. And he's like loading this team up right now, man. He was. So look, here's my thing with Patriots fans, Patriots people that talk to me about, Cam, this and that. They won 7 games last year with Cam. 7. They just got Calvin Noy back a few minutes ago. They just loaded up the rest of their roster. They've got opt-outs who are coming back in. You're talking about Patrick Chung and Dante Hightower. Those aren't insignificant things that you're moving back into your lineup. Now you're talking about running 2 tight end sets where Cam can flourish. You're not asking him to throw aside the numbers or anything like that. Bill Belichick was not cool with having 7 and 9. The Bills better watch their back. Pretty much is what I'm going to say.
I mean, you know, the Pats are like one really dope running back away from like really putting that whole offense together. And with Kendrick Bourne coming over, you're absolutely right. He's going to work that short to intermediate game and just live in that realm. That's where he lives, you know? So with Kendrick and looking at that perspective of him leaving, I absolutely agree that he made the right decision for himself, his family, and his future. When you're an undrafted free agent, you know, coming out of Eastern Washington or wherever he came from,
Cooper Kupp's alma mater as well
as Ebukam's alma mater. They're all on the same team. He had to scrap and fight his way. Like, luckily, he landed with the 49ers, where we had so many depth issues that he was able to find a starting role, or not starting role, but find a role on that roster and maintain it throughout his rookie contract. At one point, Kendrick Bourne was the highest paid wide receiver on the 49ers.
He was.
He was. And for a guy who's money motivated, he is not shy to say it. He said at the beginning of the year, he's motivated by getting a contract. And look what he did. He got it, and he goes to a great spot with Bill Belichick. And again, he's going to work that short to intermediate game where Cam thrives. And there's a natural fit there. So honestly, his energy will be missed, you know, as a fan. You know, when you're at the game and you're at Levi's, and, you know, KB's like throwing passes to the fans, like he's on the sideline and he's hyping everyone up. He's running, you know, his pregame routes, and he's dancing and he's doing his vibe and getting everyone hyped. That's a lot of fun. It really is. And that will be missed. Absolutely. And you could see from the 49er players' reaction to him leaving across social media, they really are going to miss his impact on the locker room. But I think in regards to the money that he got paid, it was a just great decision for him. And I think the 49ers now find themselves an opportunity to go find that Curtis Samuel, go find that John Brown, because honestly, that's what I feel the 49ers wide receiver 3 should look like, as you do as well, because we know what Kyle Shanahan's scheme is capable of. So let's not pigeonhole any of these guys into one certain role. Go out and get your Amari Rodgers. Go out and get your Demetric, you know, your Feltons, your Shi Smiths, your Dwayne Eskridges. You know, there's so, you know, if Jordan's in here, you say Elijah Moore, he's going to get all excited.
He's going to go crazy.
You know, he's going to go crazy. So there are so many of these types of wide receivers in this draft. So that's where I'm looking. I'm like, you know what? I get it. I understand it. Go get the bag. Go to another spot. See if you can thrive. We wish you nothing but the best. But I also look at it as an opportunity for the offense to evolve a little bit. So I'm really, I'm actually kind of excited to see what they do at that wide receiver 3 position, because obviously we have Richie James coming back. Jalen Hurd has been unavailable for 2 years in a row due to injury. And then you have Juwan Jennings, who last reported almost ripped his hamstring off the bone. So there's still a lot of unknown behind Ayuk and Debo. And I don't think fans. So what's crazy with Debo is I think Debo's injury history has kind of skated under the radar towards the end of the year. He came on Instagram Live, and Kendrick Bourne asked him straight up, "When are you having your surgery?" And I don't think they meant to put that out there. But to me, that tells me that Debo's still having issues with his foot and had surgery again, which would be his second surgery. So that to me poses concerns from a roster construction standpoint, that we know Debo has had he's been an injured player since his freshman year in college and has dealt with it every single year, including the pros. So I think the 49ers really need to have their feelers out in this draft and see what kind of like mid to late round wide receivers they can get. Over at the 4th and 9 or 4th and Gold podcast, they had Austin Watkins on.
Austin Watkins, man,
stud. We saw him at the Senior Bowl. He's a freaking stud, and he can probably be had. I'm going to say he's going to be around a 3rd, 4th round guy. I mean, in mocks, he's going 7, 6, but we understand where his value is. He's going to be right there in that middle tier. So there are guys that you can find across this class that can come in and fill a similar role to Bourne, if not kind of evolve that role a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm excited about.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more upside, and when I was talking about, John Brown and Curtis Samuel, it was never to put down Kendrick Bourne. It's just, no disrespect to him. He's not the receiver
Right.
they are. And no. To think about, it could be a scenario where you have to line up Ayuk, Debo, and like a John Brown in the slot, or like a Curtis Samuel out there. And it's just like, that's a nightmare. Like you have no shot. You have 2 guys that can run every single route on the field, and they can threaten you vertically. And that's really where I was at with it. Thanks for making me sad, because once we get off of here, I will start like my binging on drinking and everything. And I'm probably not going to make it through the night. Honestly, I'm really sad about it.
This is why you shouldn't be sad. It's because there are so many Curtis Samuel-esque wide receivers in this class. And
that's true.
You can find them at every level: top tier, middle tier, lower tier. Yeah. You just gotta find what you want. And so what I did like about Curtis Samuel was his ability to play out of the backfield. I thought that would just bring a completely different dynamic to the offense, where you could come out in what looks and appears to be a wide set, and then you just bring them in and hand them off the ball, and you start manipulating the defenses and their schemes and their matchups and their personnel packages, which was what Kyle wants to do anyways.
Positionless football.
Only Shans for a reason, right?
Let's go.
He just wants to manipulate the defense. He wants to be able to run his offense based on what they're giving him. So you just got to find those guys that can come in and play and do multiple things. So I'm excited, man. I think there's going to be some more weapons added this offseason coming the draft. That's why I like the moves in free agency, like we're talking about. Offensive line, we're shored up. Do we still draft a center or a guard? I think so. We look at wide receiver. Do we draft a wide receiver? Yeah, I think so. Could we draft a running back? Yeah, I think so. But again, I keep saying I think so. We have the flexibility to be able to really pick best player available and what we need. So based on how, we've watched free agency go through of being a big draft head, right? I'm just looking now at how I can go and maneuver through this draft and start, not only filling roles and holes, but drafting with best player available in mind. Now I don't feel like there's one spot, that I need to go fill other than safety. But free agency isn't over. So we'll see.
It's not, and we're running up to the draft. Brad, this was an amazing show. Thank you for joining, buddy. Real quick, plug your page. You guys probably, anybody that's in here, you guys know who he is on IG. You know who he is on Twitter. But go ahead, plug your page real quick, Brad.
I appreciate that. You can find me at the SF Niners on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're trying to get better at TikTok. I'm not a big TikToker, but pretty much you can find us anywhere. It's legit.
All right. Well, if Juju comes over here, he'll definitely be able to give you a masterclass on how to
Corvette. Let's go.
Right. But thank you guys again for tuning in, and thank you guys for joining. Just want to let you guys know real quick. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. Please hit like, so you can be. And when you hit subscribe, just make sure you hit that bell so you're notified whenever it is that I go online. Or just want to let you know, because this man is involved in it. It is Brad, it is I, and it is Jordan. Only Shan's merch has dropped, and it is in my pinned tweet. So if you guys want to go in there, buy a t-shirt, get a hoodie, it's all there for you. I know you guys have been asking, you've been in my DMs asking, and it's there for you guys now. So you can get it. You can get, flossed up with Coach's, gear before the season starts. And, also subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, anywhere that you get your podcasts. Brad, again, thank you for joining. We probably should have Andrew back. I don't want to speculate or anything like that. He should be good. He's fine. Like if anybody's worried, he's fine. He's not, it's nothing, that bad. It's just today he couldn't do it. And, he understood that the show has to go on because of free agency and things like that. But, I miss that guy. I wish it would have been all three of us. That would have been amazing. But
I appreciate you having me, man. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, come on, Brad. You know what it is. So look, for anybody that's going to be up in 15 minutes, we're jumping on Clubhouse bonus content, and I think that everybody that jumped into the Clubhouse yesterday, they got some unfiltered stuff, man. And I think that's the allure of jumping into is the allure of jumping into Clubhouse is that some people are going to say things that they normally don't say on the timeline. And you might walk away with a nugget or two.
We're buttoned up right now. You get on Clubhouse. It is what it is.
I plan to have about 7 to 10 minutes of just crying about the fact that Curtis Samuel and Smokey Brown are not on the team anymore, but or not in the plan. So,
right.
For Brad, for Jay, for Andrew, thank you guys, and as always, let's go Niners.
Let's go.